I think Muna is a little bit of this fantasy world alter ego. We like trying to embody like we're queer superheroes on stage. And with the solo project, I did absolutely zero glam when I played shows, and I didn't change my clothes. I would just go on stage in like a sweater and jeans and didn't give my hair a blowout or anything like that. And I think that confirmed something that I've already known to be true, but it was still nice to have it confirmed, is like the people that show up for me and my music, like they're not there because they're sexualizing me. I mean, some of them might sexualize me a little bit, and that's fine, but it's like they're not there just because they're sexualizing me. They are there because we have a connection that is around the art and our experience of life.
That was Katie Gavin, and this is SHEROES, a weekly podcast to amplify women, non-binary, and genderqueer voices in music across genres and generations. We do this because we believe that sharing our stories is the first step to making music better for everyone. I'm Carmel Holt. It was almost exactly a year ago that the band Muna played, or should I say slayed, Newport Folk Festival. And the next day, their frontwoman Katie Gavin made her debut as a solo artist in a surprise solo acoustic set where she gave fans a very early preview of songs from her album, What a Relief. She said, "I've done maybe one set like this since I was in high school, but nevertheless, it was pure perfection. And I started working on bringing Katie to SHEROES that day. So what's taken us so long? Well, if you've been with us on the SHEROES journey for a while, you may recall that we took a detour last year for our Road to Joni project for 10 weeks in the fall, which, by the way, also included an interview with Katie's bandmate in Muna, Naomi McPherson. And while we were busy traveling the country and making our series on Joni Mitchell, Katie Gavin was out on a headlining tour in support of the album. And this year, she went out on the road as the opener for Lucy Dacus, along with recent SHEROES guest Jasmine Forti. So now, at long last, Katie's schedule is slowed down enough that we could find some time to sit down and chat on SHEROES. I'm so thrilled to welcome Katie Gavin as this week's SHERO in the spotlight. Katie Gavin, this is long overdue. I'm so happy to finally have you on SHEROES. Welcome.
I'm so happy that we found a time to make it work. It's really nice to be here.
Feels like kismet because Pride. Happy Pride to you.
Thank you so much. Happy Pride to you.
Thank you so much. You have any big plans for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm going with my partner to like a wine fair in San Francisco. It's funny because I'm sober, but my partner is a wine importer. So gonna go to San Francisco and hang out, and yeah, it'll be nice to take a weekend trip. It would be amazing if there's Pride events in San Francisco. We're missing Dyke Day in LA, which is very sad. So,
I've heard good things about Dyke Day in LA.
Dyke Day is the best. It's my favorite Pride activity.
Well, an overdue congratulations on this perfection of an album. What a relief. I mean, I've been a Muna fan since day one, but this album is so special.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Talk to us about What a Relief and what it's been like so far since you put it out in the world.
Well, in a way, I'm kind of seeing this interview as like a way to kind of look back on what this album cycle has been for me. It, in my mind, is like kind of coming to a close right now because I'm really transitioning back into Muna world. So for those who are listening and don't know much about my career, I've been in a band called Muna for like more than a decade. And then I put out this solo record last October, and I just got off tour with Lucy Dacus, and that was kind of like, I decided, this will be like the last tour for this album for the foreseeable. But it was all super meaningful for me. It was a really long time in the making, but at the same time, I didn't really realize I was making a solo record. These songs just kind of built up. I had made 3 albums with Muna, and there was this natural thing that happened where there were certain songs that I showed them, and, we all felt like they had something in them, but they weren't, for one reason or another, like didn't exactly fit the Muna project. And I think I just got to a point, and also through like talking to other friends and musicians that I collaborate with, like I realized that it was important for me to keep pursuing those songs, and that it would be important for me to release those songs and kind of let people in on this other part of me as an artist. And it just was it just took me on this crazy, like long and winding road, but that ultimately like made me fall back in love with a lot of parts about like the songwriting and record making process. And now is kind of making me like fall back in love with Muna and being a band. And yeah, so it kind of like led me back home.
Amazing. So I want to dive deeper into a bunch of the layers that you just sort of created for us of what this time has been. But I also want to play a song clip. So with all that in mind, what song do you think is the right one to go to first?
Let's see. I think maybe we start with this song Inconsolable, because that song in a way just started playing another song. For the listeners, I have press-on nails right now, and I'm really not used to them because normally I'm like playing guitar and fiddle, but yeah, I'm wearing these nails for the next couple of days, and it's bringing a lot of chaos into my life. But I'll give you some ASMR. Inconsolable was one of the songs that kind of shifted things, where I realized, okay, I think I have a solo record. And it was a song that I wrote around the time that, I really started to have those conversations like more seriously with the early group of people that I worked on this record with. And yeah, it's a song that is definitely like connected to a lot of my influences as a songwriter. I've talked about how like I listen a lot to that record, Attempted Mustache by Loud and Wainwright. And it's a very like country, almost bluegrass like feel. And it was just really clear, like, I'm so sorry, my cat is crazy. It was very obvious to me that even the lyrical content, it just wasn't a pop song in the same way that we're looking for a lot of Muna songs to be. Even if a Muna song is more country, it's kind of like still has some pop to it. And this just wasn't that, but I really loved it, and it felt like central to the record. So it's like, you have a couple songs that end up being like cornerstones, and I think this was one of them. So I think it makes sense to start there.
That's called Inconsolable from the Katie Gavin solo debut, What a Relief. We have Katie Gavin in the SHEROES Spotlight this week, and I'm Carmel Holt. So as we started our conversation before that, we were talking about the journey of this album and how it's coming to a close. I feel so lucky that I got to see you out on this tour opening up for Lucy Dacus. It was really, really amazing to see you in that context. And you also said something about how you've kind of come to this place of like falling back in love with your band. And that's also so wonderful. I mean, you think about that, like in any relationship, sometimes it's that whole like distance makes the heart grow fonder, things that you reflect on that you now appreciate on a deeper level. What are some of those things that came to you that like kind of made you fall back in love with your band?
Well, I think it's kind of is two different levels. First of all, there's like the practical thing of my bandmates are my best friends, and it is not easy putting out work like in this world and society. And even like simple things like doing press, I miss having them around. So there's just like the practical thing of, I think it can feel like really lonely to be a solo artist, and I don't envy people who like that's their main bread and butter. But beyond that, I think, God, my dear, I'm really sorry. I also, my partner has a 16-year-old dog, and he just jumped off the bed, and now he wants to come back up. So give me a second.
Sure, of course.
I know you guys said like no pets, but this just is what it is.
That's fine.
You want to interview the lesbian? This is what it is. This is Truman.
Hi, Truman. Hi, buddy.
Yeah, he's a little indecisive. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as this other layer of like falling back in love with my band, I have to be mindful about my words because we haven't really shared that much about this next record that we're making. But I will say that like having a project where there was no rules and like no expectations of what it was going to be put me back in touch with this like really experimental part of myself of just like doing something in the recording process because I think it's fun or would be interesting and like just trying stuff. That was really important for me to like reconnect with. And I think we all in our own ways have like grown as individuals, like just in different creative endeavors in the last couple of years. And then that's made us more confident when we come back to just like kind of be experimental and not be so stuck in the roles that have kind of ossified as we've continued to be a band.
I love all of that. And that's the makings of a long, strong relationship, too, when you can give each other that room to grow as individuals. I mean, that's what the journey of life is all about, too. And since you've been together since college, like these are some formative decades now.
I know, it's so crazy. Like, this is the longest and most important relationship of my life. It definitely is like being in a marriage, being in a band. There's a
100%.
lot of similarities. Not that I would know, but that's what it seems like.
Well, can you take us back to your origin story with music? Like, where did you and music first meet up, and like how that all led to this beautiful marriage, now this long-term marriage with Muna?
Yeah, I started writing songs at a pretty young age. I think I was like 10 when I like recorded my first song on like a
Wow.
little cassette player. I started on violin, which like then kind of played a role later in the solo record because I picked back up violin and I actually used my student violin that my mom had in storage until I got like good enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna buy myself an actual fiddle. But yeah, I started on violin and then got a guitar. My mom played guitar. She played guitar at like Sunday school. And I became interested in playing. And once I learned like a few chords, then I just immediately started writing. My family was always like really supportive of that. I'm also like, I have a lot of different types of privileges in my background that I think are important to mention because we do live in a climate right now where a lot of people don't have access to pursuing their love of the arts unless they have some type of safety net, you know? And that was definitely a part of my story and was very present for me. But yeah, my mom was really supportive. I started playing shows in high school,
Mm.
you know, just like little at like the community house and played like a residency at Hamburger Mary's in Andersonville. I'm from Chicago. And I did like a summer camp where I got this mentor. His name is Chris Sampson. I was like 15 and he just really took us all seriously as songwriters and artists.
Mm.
And then there's different twists and turns to the story, but I'll just skip over some parts. I ended up he became the dean of the popular music program at USC. And I didn't go there at first, but I ended up transferring there my sophomore year of college. And first, there was like a year there where I went to New York and I started studying like American history. And I also like kind of came out that year. I don't know, kind of like fell out of the closet and then like briefly went back in. You know how it can be. And ended up at USC. And because I transferred, I was a year older than the other kids in the music program. And so that's how I ended up in the same classes as Josette, who's the lead guitarist of Muna. And then because I was still studying American history, I ended up in a class with Naomi, who was an African American studies major. And that was how we kind of like all got connected and ended up in the band together. But yeah, I mean, my background was super like singer-songwriter. And then when I became like an adolescent, I was more interested in electronic music and this kind of like punk riot girl ethos, especially after I came out. I was like, I want to start like a lesbian punk band, which we tried to do, but none of us really liked punk music really. Yeah. So in a way, it's like making the solo project was just a way of kind of like honoring part of where I came from and definitely like the kind of music that I listened to when I was a kid.
Yeah, I kept seeing in all the press the quote unquote Lilith core, which I love.
Yeah,
You know?
people really grabbed onto that.
Yeah, people really did, but it's such a great catch-all term. Bring it back, please, Lilith. I mean,
know,
why?
I know. We're talking. I know.
Please, we need it. Yeah, so how did gender and, in your case, your sexuality, but in particular, how did gender intersect or not intersect, support or not support your creative endeavors?
Right. The first thing that comes to mind is, we talked about roles a little bit in the band and like the importance of always like kind of straining against like the roles that you put yourself in or that other people put you in and like, always growing in that way. And I think when I think back to when I was younger, like particularly, I would say from like 14 when I started playing shows to when I was 19, 20 and started playing with Muna, there was a long period in there of, I would say like especially when I wasn't out of the closet and was still kind of like performing, I don't know, femininity in a certain type of way. I certainly struggled with holding on to power in creative spaces. There were times where I would try to work with producers that were like usually older guys and would go in with, a demo on my acoustic guitar and would leave with like something that sounded completely different and not really be sure how that happened or how my voice was involved in that process.
Right.
And I also had a few like projects with different guys that were around my age where I think we had these images of, okay, it's like we'll be a guy-girl duo where the guy is the producer and the girl like sings over beats, But I'm grateful for all those experiences because low-key, like no, whatever, I don't care. My high school boyfriend used Ableton and made beats on Ableton. And I still use Ableton to this day. Part of like why I started using it was I was just like, this doesn't seem that hard. And I'd rather just do like, I don't want to have to keep like fighting for my space in the creative process. So let me just do this myself. And that was, I think, really important for me. And going back to this mentor that I had, Chris, who then became like the dean of this program that I was in. When I came to that school at 19, I was making some of the weirdest music that one has ever heard. And I was again, like just like really experimenting and making stuff that I think like most people didn't like. It was like chromatic. The lyrics were really sexually explicit in a way that was like kind of grotesque. And it was like, I was just getting very freaky with things. But the thing was that it was like my domain to play around with. And at the time, it was this very like important conversation where he was like, I don't totally understand what you're doing right now in your creative process, but I can see that it's an important part of your process. And like, I trust you as an artist. And like, I love that you're trusting you as an artist and like, you're going to land where you're supposed to land, And so I'm really lucky that I had like an ally in that sense, like somebody who didn't try to control my creative expression. And I think honestly, there was probably a lot of like anger like in a lot of ways, I think that creative period was like a reaction to being like constrained for so long, right? Like I just had to express a lot of stuff that maybe was ugly. I was trying to like really say like a huge F you to the patriarchy, I guess. And I needed to get all that stuff out to then like move on and find what the next thing was that I wanted to say. And then like once I found Muna, I think it was so important for us to just be like the benefit of having a group of people that share like a marginalized identity. Like there's so much that you don't have to tell each other. And also we inherently like respect each other's creative opinions and we respect each other's creative processes. And that was huge. I think that was like a really big paradigm shift for me once I like found my people. It was interesting. Then there's kind of like this next chapter. And I think really this is more Naomi and Joe's domain to talk about. So I won't like get too deep into it. But, you know, we started as a band, we started like being more public facing in like 2014, 2015, which was still pretty early to be like out as queer. And, you know, one of my band members is non-binary. So we're not a girl band, but really people didn't know how to perceive us other than in this kind of like archaic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this awful thing that happens, like whether you identify as a girl band or not, like if people identify you, then the band almost is like means more to people aesthetically than it does sonically. Like people just think it looks cool.
Right.
And that feels bad. And then also it was like this funny thing of like there were certain boxes, and I've talked to so many older butches who have worked in music or entertainment in some way where they experienced that people just didn't really know what to do with them. So like stylists or managers or label people, whatever, it's like people are trying to fit you into a certain box and they want you to look like a certain way, you know? Anyway, yeah, that was its own saga, and it's kind of like forever unfolding. But I feel like I've had so many experiences of like working on projects or being on sets where it's majority, if not, where there's like not any cis guys on set, which I'm very lucky to have that experience.
I did think about stepping outside of your band, out of the safety of your band, and going out into the world solo. You mentioned how it could be a little isolating, and that combo platter of being in a marginalized group. There is something to having that safety net around you, you know?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely came up. Like, it absolutely came up when I started working on this project. I mean, like, talking about being in high school and, like, going in with male producers and kind of, like, losing my creative vision or not being able to find it in the first place. Like, all of that stuff definitely came back up, like, when I was working on the solo project, but in a very, like, beautiful, cyclical way where I was able to see like how much I have grown and changed and how much agency I have in those spaces. And because I worked with a lot of men on this project, the two people that kind of encouraged me to like start working on arrangements for these songs and did a lot of those arrangements were my friends Scott and Eric. Scott was the original drummer for Muna, and Eric is a songwriter who I also went to college with, and he played guitar on the last tour I just went on. But, you know, like they really were available to, they like wanted me to feel like I could express my own vision. And then beyond, like, I think the real test for me was, so Muna signed to Phoebe's label in 2021, I think. And at the time I was working on these songs, so I showed her them. And she expressed that she wanted to put out the solo record on Satisfactory, but she was like, I think I want you to meet with my producer, this guy, Tony Berg, who's like, you know, he's like an OG LA producer. He has a studio called Sound City.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he wouldn't have a problem with me talking about this on a podcast. I actually think he's starting a podcast, and we'll probably hash this out on his podcast at some point. But we had a rocky start in the beginning. And I think a lot of that was me just being triggered by, like, in a way I was kind of shadow boxing. I was like dealing with old memories and old feelings of not being able to hold on to my creative instincts. And also, like, I don't know, we had this really good conversation. Like, we did a couple days together, and I ended up feeling like, I don't know if I can do this with him. I might need to like work on this, like kind of go back to my safe space. And then I gave it some time, and we talked on the phone, and I was like, I know that you might think that I'm this tough cookie who can, like, I don't know, like hang with the guys and like just be like negging people in the studio and whatnot. And I do like doing that. I was raised Irish Catholic, so I'm absolutely a negger, but like I need a lot of softness and sweetness and tenderness and positive affirmation when I'm in a creative space in order to like be able to hear myself think. Someone was talking to me about this, like in songwriting sessions, like the biggest asset you can have going into a place where you need to be creative is knowing what you need to be able to hear yourself think.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time, like, I lose that. And I have realized, like, in working with Muna, we've gotten so good with each other of like communicating in simple ways, like, that hurt my feelings. I'm feeling shut down. I need to like take a walk. I need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. Like really childlike things. And I ended up like having to communicate that to Tony kind of early on. And I remember like sitting there and like crying in front of him. And we didn't even know each other that well. But I was just like, I don't feel like good enough in a lot of these ways. Like, this is scary for me. And I know, like, I just need you to know that you have to be gentle. And first of all, he listened and he really heard it and he wasn't defensive. And he was like, this is the first day that I feel like I met you. And after that point, like, we've had such a beautiful, honestly, like friendship and relationship. And it's been really healing for me to be like, oh, I can like work with a man and still show up as myself.
Yes.
And I don't have to like assimilate. I just have to like really validate my own shit and then communicate it, you know, ask for what I need. And if someone can't give that, then we really shouldn't be working together.
It's like a teachable moment, right?
Yeah.
Going into a situation that is triggering, that historically has not gone well, but using everything that you learned in order to communicate your needs in a clear way. And then it's like up to the other person what they're going to do with it, you know?
Right.
You know, there's like one way of doing it where we just exist in our own bubbles, right? Like, I know you're friendly with Amber Bain. We had this whole conversation about her like light bulb moment of working with Chloe in the studio on this last record. And she was like, I never want to work with a straight person or a cis person ever again. Like, that's it. Like, I just want to work with queer women, period. End of story.
Totally.
And like, respect. I get that. I also think that there's something amazing about dipping your toes into the cis straight man world and trying to see if you can build those bridges, because ultimately we need that.
Yeah. And I think it's also so funny because hearing you say that, my immediate instinct is like, and I would say this to Tony's face, but I'm like, well, yeah, the queers are still better. I'm like, Well, yeah, no, it's the queers. But I do think that sometimes these guys have good ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes these guys have good ideas, sorry to say. And it's also this cute thing of like, you know, like sometimes with Muna, we have like middle-aged straight male fans that will get messages from, and they're like, I really hope it's okay that I tell you like that this record like really helped me so much. Like I was going through this really hard time in my life and blah blah blah. It's like they have feelings. Like they are looking for answers, and I think it's important to have a generous spirit and to share some of the wisdom that we have with these men.
Amen.
You know?
Amen to that. Yes.
And yeah, it's been healing for me. Because also I grew up in this environment that was like, I grew up on the North Shore of Chicago, it's a very like straight, white, kind of narrow bubble. And to be able to be in a space where I was like, maybe a lot of the people that are here have a certain lifestyle or like live one way, and I just don't have to assimilate to that in order to have a space here, in order to have value here. But I don't think I would have been ready to do that for a long time. Like so much of this record I couldn't have done until I was in my 30s. You know, there's like, I talk about a lot of family stuff on this record. I talk about a lot of stuff about healthy intimacy that I just like, I didn't know shit about that stuff, you know, like, and I didn't really have the like self-value and self-acceptance. I think a lot of that, sometimes we just got to wait for it. So it's like, if it's not working for you to be in a space like that, then yeah, build your little safe space and build your bubble and work there, and you'll probably make shit that's just as good.
Or better.
Or better.
Oops.
Probably better.
Probably better. I would love to get to another song. What do you reckon? What would be good here?
I think maybe let's play Sanitized. I'm really proud of that one. It's definitely the weirdo.
It's the weirdo of the bunch, and it's like my favorite on the record.
So cool.
Yeah. Anything you want to tell us to set it up?
Yeah, what we just said. Sanitize is the weirdest song on the record. This was a song that I had a demo of from Ableton in like 2018. And again, this song started because I'm not a good piano player, but I just had a goal at that time of like practicing piano every day. And I like had messed up on some finger exercise I was doing. And then that's how I came up with that strange piano riff. So again, like this experimentation is such like a driving force in making a lot of the music. And I showed Tony this demo, and I was thinking that he was going to shut it down like because it's such a weird song, but he really is the kind of person where it's like the weird stuff is like what he's drawn towards. So it came together really quickly. We recorded it as like a trio with this amazing synth player Benny Bach and my bassist Nana Ajoa and Sarb Singh, who drums for Muna. So Nana and Sarb both were on the tour with me. And it was just really, really fun to make this song. I couldn't even speak on what exactly it's about. Although it's kind of about like performing femininity. I wrote it in 2018, kind of like reminiscing on my recent compulsive heterosexual behavior and just like the feeling of when you're with somebody but you're really not being yourself. So it's like you're cutting off the possibility of having like a real connection with somebody. And so that's the kind of the metaphor I'm playing within the song.
That falls in the middle of Katie Gavin's exceptional new album, her solo debut, What a Relief. Katie Gavin is our Shero in the Spotlight this week, and I'm Carmel Holt. When you were talking about the song Sanitized and about performative femininity was, I think, how you put it. I was thinking about how Muna is and then how you might feel being on stage solo and what those two experiences might have taught you about how you present and how you're perceived?
I mean, it's very interesting. I think I've been thinking a lot in the last couple of years about, I think I am performing a lot of gender stuff on stage with Muna, but it's in this way, I'm really interested in like these classic roles of like butch and femme in the lesbian community. And I think from what I have learned from, my community and like the archives, my understanding of like performing femme identity is that it can often look like, on first glance, it can look like you're performing for like the male gaze or like these kind of typical like westernized quote unquote like female beauty standards. But what's interesting to me is that when you look closer, it all has this kind of like tongue-in-cheek nature or like wink to it. It's almost like if I'm doing glam in Muna, it's to a degree usually that like cis men may not find attractive because it's like so hyped up, like the heels are so high, the nails are so long, the cat eye is like so crazy. And it's like at a certain point, it's like you're almost like making fun of the performance of the thing. And then at the same time, like I really honestly love dressing up like a pretty girl for the butches. Like that is a part of my sexuality. Like I think that that's so sweet and fun and exciting. Like to just be like, yeah, I want to be a pretty girl for you because I know that you like it when I wear my like little skirt. And at the same time, it's like there's parts of it, again, that a butch would find attractive that a man might not find attractive. Like I'm going to be in a mini skirt, but I'm also going to be like straddling the stage monitor in a way that a guy would be like, well, that's not very, ladylike. But a woman is like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like there's certain parts of my identity that just show up on stage, like regardless. I think Muna, everything is more exaggerated and there's more of this like, it is a little bit of like this fantasy world, this like alter ego. We like trying to embody like we're queer superheroes on stage. And with the solo project, it differed from tour to tour, but there was something that was very cool and healing for me about the headline solo tour I did. I like did absolutely zero glam when I played shows, and I didn't change my clothes. I would just go on stage in like a sweater and jeans and didn't give my hair a blowout or anything like that. And I think that confirmed something that I've already known to be true, but it was still nice to have it confirmed, is like the people that show up for me and my music, like they're not there because they're sexualizing me. I mean, some of them might sexualize me a little bit, and that's fine. But it's like they're not there just because they're sexualizing me. They are there like because we have a connection that is like around the art and our experience of life. So that was very cool to just be able to like show up as myself. And the other piece of it that I think of when I think about the difference there is like when I'm playing shows in Muna, I play acoustic guitar sometimes, but most of the time I'm just like dancing and using my body to kind of like, build this fantasy. And with the solo record, it's much more like practical. Like I'm playing guitar, I'm playing the fiddle, I'm playing the piano, I'm playing the shruti box. Like I think that there was something I had kind of like built up this desire of like, I want to be like showcasing some skill sets. And that was really fun to do. It was fun to like give myself these challenges and frankly, like not live up to them every time, but like get better at these instruments as I was touring. I think that's like such a delight. It was also important to me to be like showing people like you don't have to be perfect at what you're doing, you know, kind of like this OG Riot Girl aesthetic of like, just pick up the instrument, honey, and just like try something. And people find that so engaging. Like, if you know a singer is going to hit every note regardless because their technique is flawless, like, it's not that interesting. If you're seeing somebody like who's figuring stuff out in real time and you like, that's when people really tap in, because we like want to see that from people. We want to see people striving.
And I just want to mirror back to you, though, that your performance was sublime. I mean, sorry. I know maybe there was some rough edges that you knew about, but from my perspective, sitting in the audience, I was like, holy shit. This is a whole other level of Katie that I never got to see before in Muna. And it was so
nice.
fun. Oh, I'm not being nice. I'm just being honest. You know, it was great. It was great. And it made me excited for the next chapter, too.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Since we're in Pride Month,
yes,
what does Pride mean to you, Katie Gavin?
Oh, God. I should have a rote answer for this because, you know, I've been answering this question for a while. But I think it's actually good that it shifts every year, because this is a very different year for Pride.
Yes, it is.
You know, I have a friend named Shaddy who like posted something about like that it's weird thinking about like all the years that we complained about like corporate sponsorship for Pride, thinking about how now it's like all gone.
Yeah.
It just feels, you know, it feels really different this year because our community is under attack in like such real, tangible ways. I think one of the things that I'm so proud of in this community is the way that we show up for each other. And for me this year, I'm going to try to make Pride about checking in on the people in my community who I know are like in really vulnerable positions right now. Like, I personally know a few trans musicians whose careers have been affected by just like bullshit with applying for visas. I know queer writers whose careers have been affected because there's so much less financial opportunities for telling queer stories right now. I think I'm just in a place of like wanting to keep it really simple and show up for my community in those like personal, one-on-one, tender ways.
Yeah.
Even like I was talking to you at the beginning of this, like I have a queer elder neighbor who's in the hospital and just like showing up and being there as chosen family and like giving the nurse the lowdown on like all the gay connections between everybody who's there. Like, none of us are blood related, but we fucking show up for each other.
Yes.
And I'm really, really, really proud of that. And I feel bad for people that don't have that. Yeah. I think I'll just add one more thing. I've been thinking about how, you know, there is a certain amount of like pride that I take in the fact that I'm a part of this community means that I've done a certain amount of work to get to know myself and to like accept myself. And I look at people like J.K. Rowling and I feel it on a spiritual level that there is something going on there. I'm like, I just know that you have something that you need to work out with yourself. And we have done that with ourselves and we're chilling.
Yeah.
So you need to do that and then you need to fucking chill. You know? Like,
Yes.
I genuinely am just like proud of our people. I'm like, we have done something like spiritually where we can sit with ourselves and all the different parts of ourselves. And a lot of y'all need to learn how to do that.
Hell yeah.
Get to work.
Yes. Katie Gavin, it's been so awesome to have you here on Sheroes. I have one last thing to offer you, which is a Sheroes magic wand. I'm handing it to you through the screen.
Thank you.
It's for all of our witches and bitches. And I am going to give you the opportunity to change anything in the music industry for women, for non-binary folks, for queer folks, for anyone whose voice is not heard in equal number. First wave of the wand, what would you change?
Okay. Well, does everybody say the same thing?
Nope.
I would assume everyone's just like, the artists need money. But but it goes back to one of the first things I said in this conversation about, me being able to pursue music because I come from privilege. I want there to be opportunities for development for people who come from working class backgrounds and people who don't have, that same safety net. I want there to be a chance for those creative voices to be developed because I genuinely believe that the more we hear stories from Black and Indigenous people of color, working class people, trans women, people that just don't have the safety nets, those are the stories that we need to hear. And I really believe that those stories change the world in a big way. So I need some type of program that's helping us develop those voices. So let's get it going.
Ding! May it be so.
May it be so. And so it is.
Katie, thank you so much for being with us. Take us out with one last track off of What a Relief.
Let's party. Why don't we play Casual Drug Use?
Oh, hell yeah. Love it. But thanks once again to Katie Gavin. Thank you for being with us on SHEROES. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Huge thanks once again to Katie Gavin for joining us. Her solo debut, What a Relief, is available everywhere on Saddest Factory Records. SHEROES is produced by me, is mixed and mastered by Kelly Drake. Our original theme music is by Lucius. SHEROES is also a nationally syndicated radio show. Please visit SHEROESradio.com to find out more. Keep in touch on Instagram and Twitter at SHEROES Radio, and please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps us grow and bring you more SHEROES. Until next time, remember, music is our superpower. I'm Carmel Holt. Thanks for listening. SHEROES is proud to present The Road to Joni, celebrating the legacy and impact of Joni Mitchell. Subscribe now to The Road to Joni, distributed by Talkhouse and available wherever you get your podcasts.